Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest today here. We have Austin Haines. He's a five-time firewalker, responsible for over 20 million in revenue during his time in his corporate job. He's reinvented his life after 19 years with the same company. And today he's a business mentor, a coach, an author, a speaker, and a documentarian. He's an marathon runner. He loves his family and friends, and he's a famously bad karaoke singer. Austin, great to have you here today.
Just laughing at that, even though it's so funny, and that really kind of brings it into lens here. Bad karaoke singer. I think we all like to. Well, some of us do. We like to get up and grab the mic, and who cares how we sound? I think there's a lot of. It's a great way to start off because sometimes people are afraid to grab the mic and sing, but it's like, what is it that you could do, even if you're bad at it, but you just love doing it, right? And that's one of those things for me. So thank you for the intro. Was looking forward to this all week to be with you and spend some time together. And I think out of all of that, I mean, it's nice to have the accolades, but what I tell every interview, I always say there's an iceberg. Like there's so much below the surface that that happened in my life, including like low self-esteem and just battling through a lot of stuff that enabled me ultimately to be here with you today. So the accolades are great, but I always make a point to say there's so much. I've made so many mistakes. It's crazy, but it's because of that I'm here with you today. So I thank you for the intro, and I'm excited to spend some time with you today, Jordan.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited to have you here on the Clockedin podcast. So, where did this journey start for you, Austin? And then we can kind of see some of these mistakes, see how you overcame them. And yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly, but that's, that's what's beautiful. Where did it start? Where it started in adversity. I won't go into the whole life story because there's just too much, but I had an early childhood memory going through, my parents went through a really bitter divorce, and I was about 5 years old. I formed a story in my mind that there was something wrong and there was something wrong with me. So my parents went through their journey of divorce and their own individual journeys. My dad had battled with addiction. My mom was clinically depressed, and I was in the middle trying to figure everything out. And so there began the story of inferiority, lack of worth, low self-esteem, but trying to figure it out. But there was an interesting thing. I grew up Catholic, and I was at this retreat, and I had this thing where I had led one of the groups. And it's this crazy story. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but a friend of mine said, you could be a priest. And I was like, a priest? I was like, I don't want to be a priest. But the reason why I'm sharing the story is because I had gifts then, whether priest, whatever, but I had gifts that could help other people. But because I was so battled with my own worth and trying to figure it out, and this is what I say in my book, I took the long road. I didn't take the easy road, but I'm still going to end up on time. And that really encapsulates my journey, because here I am midlife after spending 19 years with a company reinventing my life. So where it began, it's always been there, but it was just me discovering who I really am and then having the courage to bring it to the world. So that is a great question.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is phenomenal about you, Austin, is that when I look at people's lives, I see a majority of the time it's progression, right? So you might go, say you're on the public accounting path, you'll go and you be a partner at the end of it. That's the path that people go. So to diverge from this path that you're on in your sales experience to go, no, this is more authentically who I am. That's a major leap of faith. Like that's
Yeah.
incredible. And you don't find that the later people get in life, the more difficult it is to have that jump. So what allowed you to even consider it, and how long have you had those thoughts?
Well, here's what happened. It's always been there, but once I became more intentional and consciously aware of what was happening, and having like starting to project a vision. So a conscious vision, okay, where am I going today? And is it in alignment with who I really am at the core? And there was some shifts. There was some, I call them flicker flash.
Yeah.
So like Flashpoint is the big breakthrough in a person's life. And we create an environment for that to happen. But the flicker flash is these moments of like where you have a flicker in your mind where, wait, something's changed. It's like, it's almost like a moment of confusion where the brain's or is searching for something, a new connection, a new perspective. It could be a feeling that arises up inside, and something pops up in the brain, and you start to think about different things. And some people will listen to that, and some people won't. And that's the tragedy of they say the cemetery is the richest place because it's where all the dreams are buried. That the dreams that never happened, and that's gosh, I think about that. That's why this is what you're doing with your podcast is a great way to get a message to people. And I just ask people share Jordan's podcast, because one person that listens to this, it could change it. And for me, it came down to one decision after having that listening to that, hearing that, paying attention, and one decision changed everything for me.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that's one of the coolest things is when we start diving into those, who am I? What is my intention? What do I plan on accomplishing? Am I stepping towards that goal in any of the different realms of my life? And if you're not, you start to sit there and go, what is the use of this activity then? And that can be a job, that can be a friendship, that can be anything. And you sit there and you go, is this moving me towards the life that I want to have? But it does come down to intentionality and really thinking through who we are and what it is. And then the other point you brought up that I find really fascinating is we do these different podcasts and we do these different interviews and we have these different conversations, and it's really only to affect one person. It's to affect the one listener there, or even affect ourselves. And I could be that one listener. Half the time I'm that one listener who's like, wow, that was really good. I really appreciate that. And what most people don't realize is that these podcasts it's a student teacher relationship. So it's just a class and learning. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you dive into the flicker flash, and then where was the origin of this flashpoint? What is this flashpoint? I've watched a documentary. I think it's fascinating. It's a concept I haven't heard before. But where was the origin of that?
The origin was, I would say it was a divine download, and it's really, uh, I asked myself, I said, there's got to be a moment when it makes sense. When, and you probably saw this in the documentary, when all the confusion, the chaos, it seems like sometimes that everything we do falls apart. And we're like, gosh, where's this? Like, when do I know? And while there's many moments in a person's journey, and there's these little victories that we have, and in the midst of a lot of things that don't go right, there is a flashpoint moment. And as I, as flashpoint came through me, it evolves. It's like we create it, and then it creates us, and then it never is static. Flashpoint is not a static concept. It's a dynamic concept. It's continually evolving, and it evolved. And what I realized, and there's other ways probably to define this, but I like the word flashpoint because it brings it into this moment. It's this point. And that point could be, for me, I had an internal flashpoint that manifested into an external flashpoint, came to fruition. And I had I had gotten a job. I barely got hired for this new company. I was struggling, and I like to say they were closing the door. I kind of stuck my foot in and said, "Hey, give me a shot," and they did. Because I don't have a college degree, and they typically hired people with a college degree. But I got lucky, so I got in, and then first year and a half, I got a letter saying they were going to fire me if I didn't turn things around. So on one hand, here I'm excited, I'm in this new role, but I'm battling with my self worth. I'm not good enough. Everybody else, and so I had that. The one thing that came from that is work ethic. So the work ethic, despite my own limitations, I was able to get results. I started to get results, but this is where I had a moment where I got the letter, and then I was like, I'm just feeling this failure, just man, just see, it's like validation that on my self worth, but through that, embracing that, like just sitting with it, being courageous enough to feel what was happening inside of me. I There's another concept called the Polarity Principle, which is also in Flashpoint, and the Polarity Principle is whatever's happened in a person's life, and I don't care how bad it is, there's everything in life has an equal and opposite. So whatever's happened in your life, the bad thing, there's the opposite of it. Now, in some manifestation, like I don't, it's like if someone dies, obviously that person's gone. Like if somebody lost somebody, they're not going to come back. But if you embrace the polarity, the full spectrum of it, you can begin to transmute and create some opposite of it, because everything in life has an equal and exact opposite. So in this moment, I'm experiencing this pain. And as my awareness increases, I start to transmute. And I came up with this whole formula that I followed. And then within a few years, I was a top producer. The 1 year I was a top producer in the company in my category. And then I continued to be successful with that company for 19 years. And that was an incredible flashpoint. So think about a flashpoint that lasted 19 years. But before I turn it back to you, every week on my show, Flashpoint, we highlight the Thomas Edison light bulb. And that was a flashpoint, literally, that lasted 100 years. So that light bulb iteration was in use for 100 years. So you never know, like where a flashpoint moment could go for somebody, where it could lead to them too in their lives.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's the duration of the flashpoint can change everything, and how long it lasts and where it goes and what it can be. That polarity principle was something I've never thought about before, but it's really just so you were presented with the negative of you're not doing well at your job, and then it was, how do I turn this into a positive? Is that what you mean by that?
Well, it's a little deeper than that, because for me, remember, it's a complete paradox. Failure, I'm not doing well, I'm not worthy,
Yeah,
right? And so that's why I'm going to get fired.
yeah,
So now I'm faced. Elon Musk calls it fatalism. Like
okay,
when Elon Musk started SpaceX and Tesla, he said, I looked at it. Now Elon Musk didn't have the self-worth issues that, the earlier version of myself did. He's a very confident man, but the lesson holds true. He said, I looked at it and I said, if I fail and lose everything, I'll have to start over, but someone else can pick up where I left off. Okay, let's do it. So he calls it fatalism. So in other words, you're looking at the exact opposite of what you want. And if I can accept that, I usher in the opposite of that. It's a complete paradox. And most people don't. That's why this is like life-changing stuff, because most people are conditioned. And I'm not saying we gravitate toward failure. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're not afraid of it. We're courageous. We embrace it when it happens because we know that we can transmute it. In Elon Musk's situation, okay, if I lose everything and I fail, I'll pick up and start over. So you see that? It's not like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I suck. It's more like, okay, if that happens, then this. And now
Yeah.
you just liberated yourself to go for it. And that's what he did. And then look what happened.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think it kind of comes down to, yeah, I mean, it's really the knowing that the fear is there and going through with it anyway, even if you're scared.
Even if you're
Um,
scared, exactly.
how do you feel about, like, I think the way Elon Musk handles, like we were talking about self-worth, where it's not really attached to an outcome. So what I see is, like, in my all the time, you see people like, what is success to you? You know what I mean? And a lot of people are like, oh, I got a promotion, I got this, I got that. And in my opinion, I think it's more of an internal game. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Like, what is success to you?
I think it, I think it, this is what gave birth to Power of Pure Presence, because one of the things that I created in Flashpoint was get free, stay present, move forward, right?
Okay.
Because I had to free myself from my limitations because I was
Yeah.
stuck, I was handcuffed. Then I had to learn to live in the moment, but I wasn't living in the moment because I was hyper focused on the future, because that's where
Yeah.
my happiness was. Everything was in the future. Right? So, but we also need progress in our lives, because Tony Robbins says progress is happiness. While I don't agree with that 100%, there is some merit to it. So, um, for me, success for me is primarily living fully in the present moment in alignment with who I am. If I can be in this present moment with you and we can enjoy, like create joy now, that's a form of success that is elusive to the masses. Now, what we can do, we can set up a future goal, a vision. And so we can enjoy now fully. We give ourselves the permission to enjoy. Wow, look at this process. Oh my God, that didn't go right. Oh my God, let's laugh and let's, right? And then, but we can create, Eckhart Tolle calls it structural tension. And what it is you have a future goal that you can add enthusiasm into the moment, because it's the vision. It's so you're giving yourself the permission to live fully now, but you're adding a vision to it that creates enthusiasm, that gets you excited. And that creates this beautiful blend of success right now. And then the what the world sees is simply the fruit of what's happened inside of you internally. But what the world looks at is they're looking at the fruit going, that's success. But that's not really success. And what happens is, Jordan, is that people, many people, instead of being in alignment, they manipulate hacks, tips, tricks to produce what the world deems as successful. Meanwhile, they're unfulfilled. That's why there's billionaires that are unfulfilled.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And for the listeners, I think it's so key to have a success principle like Austin just stated, where it's him living his best in the moment. Because that doesn't mean that he has to be coaching someone. That doesn't mean that he has to be on this podcast. That doesn't mean he has to be out to dinner with his wife. That doesn't mean he has to be closing a deal. That just means all of it is true, in which case every moment, every single minute, you can create that moment, which is so much more powerful. Because a lot of the success things is we place ourselves in these parameters. Like, if I don't close $1 million this year, then I'm not a winner. Or and I know we all heard that, if I don't get a promotion, I'm not a winner. And
Right.
it's like, but it's like, you have someone who loves you, that's a win. Like, there's so many different parameters and there's so many different areas of life that to sit only in that work is success, you're going to be missing out on a lot of different aspects in life.
Absolutely. And now the hyperachievers, well, I got to be achieving. I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. Have at it. Like everything's a paradox. I mean, every truth is a half truth, but you got to look at your energy. Like if is your health good? Or do you have love in your life? You know, because if you're hyperachieving and you don't have love and maybe your health, then you got to look at that and go, wait, okay, I need to recalibrate here. Can I take some of this and like, what does living in the moment look like in my life? Because I still want to have that fulfillment of the achievement, right? I still want that. But if I'm sacrificing today and I'm losing the moment where life is, well, then it's about like, okay, I need to really look at that and be present with that and let that speak to me to see what I most need.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And it made me think about intentionality, and then also what made me start Edwards Consulting, which is the consulting I do. Um, it's the five pillars. It's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, relationships, and then spirituality. And it's how there's these five different areas happen all day in your life. And sometimes you might be more spiritual, sometimes you might be more on your mental health, sometimes it's more physical. And if you look at yourself in a range of, we have this many areas of life, then you can push forward and see that maybe all of them, that you might be doing really well in mental health and physical health, but you might have to go touch on your spirituality, your community service, or even your relationships, whatever it may be. But I think having a broader range of emotions and a broader range of what you do allows for more opportunities for success and happiness, in all honesty.
I agree. I agree.
So for you, I know that you got into marathon running, as I did myself.
Hmm.
How is that for you?
It's a crazy story. It's a great analogy because I was a, I was the opposite, and I started out as a cyclist. I
Okay.
loved riding a bike. I used to do long distance, you know, did the city to shore ride many times, just loved being on the bike. Never once crossed my mind to run. And then had a couple of my work colleagues were doing Ironmans and stuff like that. And I thought, and they infused running. And I thought, let me just see. So I started to go out and I think I did like a run walk in my neighborhood. I plotted out and I use this sometimes when I'm coaching people, but I plotted out a course and I just did a run walk. And then eventually I would would run this course, and I think it ended up being like 3 miles or whatever. And then I think I trained for it was the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia, like a 10 miler. And then I did that, and then I started thinking, well, because my mind, I'm like, well, I wasn't thinking about a marathon, like that was like Mount Everest, you know. And I thought, well, let me see if I can do the Broad Street Run. I did the Broad Street Run. Well, if I did the Broad Street Run, maybe I can do a half marathon. And then I did the half, and then I said, if I get to a half marathon, in my mind, I'm saying to myself, if I get to a half marathon, why not go for a full marathon?
Yeah.
And then that was back in 2008 and nine, this happened. And then I just kept adding until 2000 and December of 2018, I completed the Rocky 50K in Philadelphia. That
Okay.
was, that was a that was my first ultra marathon, and
Yeah.
then I did one in DC, the ultra marathon for the Marine Corps in honor of my dad who passed
Oh wow.
in the pouring rain. But that was an interesting story. So yeah, and it just became a great, not only well, you know, you're a runner too. That's why you know what I'm talking about. It's like mind, body, spirit, and it became a great catalyst for creativity and just allowing life to unfold. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned about running in honor of your father. What was that about?
So my dad was he was a Marine in Vietnam, and he had PTSD, had some addiction problems. But you know, I love both. I want to say, I know I started off talking about these bad things about my parents, but they loved me, and that's what made all the difference, despite all the stuff, right? But my dad had his own battle with being in Vietnam, and just, you know. had a man die in his arms. I didn't know any of this till after. So he was an incredible, strong-willed individual. And back in 2019, well, prior to that, I thought, let me do this. I knew I was moving into the ultra space, and I thought, let me do a run in honor of my dad. And I had a surreal moment because I get that I did this by myself. I drove to DC, and I'm looking at the forecast, rain. I get to the start line, it's raining. It downpours all day, downpour. Maybe the last 2 miles it stopped and the sun came. Maybe the last 2 or 3 miles, I want to say. But I had this surreal moment. I was running, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's this section of the course,
Yeah.
and it's a honorary mile. And because it was the Marine Corps Marathon in DC, it was these tributes to all these falling soldiers and
Yeah.
service, what do you call it? Public service people. And I'm not sure you're familiar with the movie Lone Survivor.
Yeah.
So Murph, one of the Navy SEAL guys that was lost, there's a famous CrossFit workout called Murph. Anyway, I saw his picture, and I'm looking, and everybody's, all you hear is feet. Not a single word is spoken. All you hear is people's feet, moving. And as you're running, you're seeing these things on the side of the road with the person's name, their photo, the year they died, what division they were in. And I'm running, and I find out this is like a peninsula. So you run out and then you run back, and on each side, you see these pictures. So I was so intrigued by this. And I have goosebumps because it was such a powerful, surreal moment. It's raining and all this is unfolding. All you hear is feet. And then after I completed the run, I was like, man, where is that? So I looked at the map, and I pull up the map, and the peninsula has a name. And I look, and it says Haines Peninsula. Spelled
Oh, wow.
the same way as my name. And I thought, oh my God, so my dad's thing wasn't up there because so many people that,
Yeah.
maybe I could have got him up there if I would have lobbied for it, but I didn't know. But here the darn peninsula is named after Haines. I was just, wow, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. And there is really something to anybody listening that would want to go try. And I'm not saying that these experiences always happen, but you put yourself in life for something to happen. Like, I've done several activities. Like, I ran the Lake Tahoe Marathon in 2019. I ran the New York Marathon in 2021. I hiked the Inca Trail in Peru last year. And you just put yourself in these situations and you're like, what am I doing? But at the same point, you're like, what magic is going to come of this?
Yes. I can only imagine, I'm going to have you on my show. I want to hear about that Peru Trail. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was this, I can give you a little bit, but it was basically, I went with 3 other buddies and we got pushed so many times. And I actually did a podcast with the tour guide, Teddy, because Teddy he spoke English, and it was just such a different lifestyle there. And the money is just so separate because half them can't even make enough to live. It is just ridiculous. It's so crazy. And so it comes down to your concept about, as you talked about your events, it's an experience. It's not a contextual reading. And I kind of want you to dive into that because I've been all about these experiences of and it says 5-time firewalker, that's Unleash the Power Within. That's Tony Robbins. What has experiences done for you? And to myself, it's almost a currency I use.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this too, like on a broader scale, we're done with the information age. I think people need to realize, like, I'm not saying don't seek it, but it's everywhere. And I think we're getting back to the experiential part of life. And I mean, I'll dive into, power of pure presence, right? Live
Yeah,
life in the now.
absolutely.
So the catalyst for that is the T.S. Eliot quote, we shall not cease from exploration. And in all of our exploring, we shall arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. And that to me, that's the present moment. But the experience of, we seek the experience. We seek to explore, because the exploring and the experiences provide the context and the perspective so we can fully experience and embrace life. And a lot of people compartmentalize, they only want certain parts of life. And the experience of these events ushers in all of life, because people come in with all different backgrounds and stories and circumstances and stages of life of where they are, and we get the full range of spectrum of this coming together, and it creates an experience. The information is almost just like it's like the reason why people will come, but it's not the reason why they're there. They don't, you find out after, oh, wait, I was really here for this. I wasn't here, to learn the 5 steps, Flashpoint. Like, as a matter of fact, it's so funny because I'm adding a thing to my event where it says, if this was a how-to event, you know, because a lot of people want that. Well, what are the steps? You got to give them the steps. I mean, I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
not valuable, but I'm saying, like, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to realize is half it's not even the experience, like, it's not even the activity of doing it, it's more about going to like, for example, with the Peru thing, we didn't shower for, like, 3 or 4 days, and, like, we finally found water, and we're like, "Oh my god, God bless," like, and you had to, like, bring your own water, and then you go home and the water works instantly, and you're like, "Oh my god, what a perspective shift," like, that was never part of the plan,
Yeah,
but
it's so
putting
cool.
yourself in these predicaments where you're like, how do I figure this out? And then it gets to the situation of something even bigger where it's you going to an event like yours and you go in with a situation. It's like it's really like you go in and you're thinking about something else and the answers come to you. It's a very interesting um place to be because like you said, it's not like we're learning math class here. Like
No.
it's your life and you're in a human experience and everyone needs to understand what that is.
Hmm. Yeah, it's, and I want everybody to experience. Not everybody will, but it's there, for people who are going to get this podcast, and maybe there's a invitation, for them. And the one thing we overcome is our own uncertainty of things.
Yeah.
We want predictability, but predictability doesn't lead to growth. It just leads to repeating the things that we already know and the things that we already know we can create. And that's valuable too. But what we're talking about with this experience, it does require you to, click and get out of your comfort zone. And I can tell you, the moment you sign up for a race, the moment you pay the money and you register, something kicks in, doesn't it?
A- Absolutely. And this signing up for an experience is like that's just one element. That's like signing up for a marathon, doing a long doing Mount Everest. It's like that's just one way. I would say another one is starting a business or going on that adventure because you know what I mean? Or even you like with your events where you're like flags in the ground, we're doing an event this day. And it's
Yeah.
like, who's coming? I'm not sure. Who's gonna I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I remember doing events where I had 4 people there, 5 people, and you're like, oh my God, like, because, but you're doing it, you're not doing, I mean, you're doing it from your heart, and then you grow it from there. And eventually the right people begin to show up. So,
And the other big thing about that is if you're doing this, these events are like the individuals who come, if it's 5 people, if it's 500 people, if it's 5,000 people, it's just making the impact of one. And this is one of the biggest things I always think about is if one person gained one thing, then it was worth it.
You,
And
you and I are
yeah,
in sync there, brother. I say the same thing, man. So good on you for that. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
because if you're getting caught up in, hey, I need 5,000 people, slow down. You just gotta like, you're gonna get hit with, you're gonna get hit, and it's gonna hurt, and you gotta realize that this isn't an ego thing. This isn't a pride thing. This is a people don't know because you haven't done enough. Like, and that's okay. Or maybe it's not good enough. That's okay. But as long as you're trying, that's why the way I like to look at it, you got to make it all a win-win. Like, what's a win that can happen for you? So, like, Austin, people go to your event, like, it's a win for them because they're going to have a new perspective. It's also a win because they're having experience.
It is. It is. And it's interesting. Like some of this is like, it's like people go and they think it's about what Austin's going to do in the event, but it's the exact opposite. Like it's almost like there's two worlds happening. Like I got some slides. I have we have a lot of experiential things in the event, but that's when the whole other thing starts to unfold, right? Where it's inexplicable, like what happens for people, and
Yeah.
they get in touch with they reconnect to parts they forgot. They open up parts they didn't know existed. They release, some pain or some stuff that they've been dealing with, and it's powerful. I'm humbled, because it's not like I said, "Hey, I'm going to do like." I mean, of course, I want to do events, but as they continue to unfold, you just realize it's less and less about you, and you're just more of a steward of the space, so you can allow what's supposed to happen take place. But you're there if you
Yeah.
need. Like I'm there if I need to perform because people want to see that. But I'm also not there so that what needs to happen can happen. You see what I mean?
Yeah. And the real learning could happen in the group or by yourself or when you're in the activity. It's
Absolutely.
not, let me listen to Austin. Everything Austin says is the best ever. It's
Right.
really once you start, he's just provoking thought in a way that, yeah,
That's totally it. And I always say, you may have a thought come in from nowhere, it has nothing to do with this, but you're meant to have it. So it's awesome. Yeah, it's really awesome. I love doing it, and we do want to reach more people. But to your point, if it impacts one person, it starts from there, and that one person impacts others. I mean, that's the ripple effect. I feel that now, but more than ever, I feel this ripple. I always say, if I die tomorrow or this stops tomorrow, there's a ripple. There's a ripple that will go, that will continue.
I, so you're getting into like some interesting stuff because this is something that I've thought about. When you think about, when you have like, okay, I die, what would happen? You know what I mean? And a lot of people end up passing away and like they just never really shared who they were. You know what I mean? Like they might have a corporate job, but then you see it, it's like it goes away quickly, or it's really the impact you had with people. But that's why I also like these podcasts because it's a recorded conversation that we have that's internalized forever. So we sit here and we're like, okay, that was interesting. But at the same time, this recorded 40-minute conversation is here forever. And it's a database and it's how you know what I mean? If you want to learn about Austin's Flashpoint, like there are videos that you can learn about his thing. And it's not, the message will live on. It's very cool.
It's beautiful, and that's why I'm so glad you're doing this and putting it out there for people. And it's captured, it's legacy, it continues long after.
Yeah, and I think that legacy component, it's not reflected on enough. And what I would ask the audience to do is if you guys could like really get intentional for a moment and figure out whatever it is you want to do. And if you're having trouble with that, you can have a conversation with Austin, you can have a conversation with myself, and maybe that will help assist in some sort of way. But either way, you have to figure out what direction you want to go in and then just start working towards that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll just say, the biggest thing for me again is the just overcoming the limitations.
Yeah.
This it's like a slow dis-ease of I'm flawed, the world is flawed, everything's flawed, and I just live with this low level discontent or dis-ease. And one of the things we didn't talk about, but I'll mention, is that when I resigned after 19 years, it was shocking to a lot of people. Here you are making great money. Why are you leaving? And why are you doing this? But what followed was something that I've always wanted to do. I did a 34-day cross-country road trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I recorded the journey to freedom. I had two productions. I had this. One was called Inspirational Places, Faces, and Traces. And when I talk to you about unscripted, I I look back and I'm just like, I'm in awe of what came into my space, like in terms of magical things that
Yeah.
I could never script in a million years. Like I couldn't do it. And that alone was amazing. So I have that playlist. That's Inspirational Places, Faces, and Traces. And then I also recorded 9 questions to identify and remove limiting beliefs. And what I did over the course of 11 days, I took each one of these questions along with some bonus content and hit each question each day. So I walked the listener through this journey of like, okay, what's holding you back? And then each day, each video was recorded from an inspirational place, including the Grand Canyon in Sedona, Airport Mesa. Actually, I did one of the recordings in Sedona, and it was, oh my God, just magical, like magical experience. And it's a great process to go through.
That's incredible. Where can people find that?
They 9q.yourflashpoint.com, or you can go to my website, austinhaines.com. It's on there. If you go to austinhaines.com, there's a tab called Journey to Freedom. And the thing is, you can get the 9 questions PDF. So, because the course, I want to say the course is like $97, which is,
Yeah.
by today's standards, that's like giving it away. But I just, whatever. I mean, the 9 questions though, people can get the 9 questions. That's just a download. It's a PDF.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's nice because you can just go through the questions yourself. If you wanted to do the challenge, if you will, the journey to freedom, you get a video every day for 11 days. So every morning you get a video from me. They're only like 10 minutes, so they're not super long because I don't think they need to be. It's more about just pausing and doing some introspection and just discovering like what's going on. What can I do because sometimes we don't know what's holding us back, and this is
Yeah.
designed to like really discover that so you can
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah, I'll put all of that in the show notes. Is there anywhere else that people can find you?
I think the website has everything. I spent a lot
Yeah.
to get this website up, and of course I'm very active on social media, mostly Facebook and Instagram. I know I am on TikTok too. I have some fun with that. I think I'm like, everything's about followers today. How many followers do you have? Like, I'm not like, I don't have a ton of followers. I think I got like 800. I'm getting close to 1,000, so I'll be able to go live on TikTok soon, which will be fun. That'll be a whole new experience. But I just have fun with it, and I just want to put things out there that people come across, and maybe it changes them in the moment. Maybe it's something that changes them for the next 10 years. Like, who knows? But whatever, I believe it'll find people that are looking for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Austin, this has been incredible. You are, I'm going to put all your stuff in the show notes, and I really appreciate the time, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Absolutely. And congratulations on continuing to grow and your podcast, and we'll definitely have you on our show here in the near future. We'll get you scheduled for Flashpoint TV to hear about your breakthrough story.
Let's do it.
Awesome.